My machine gunner goes, "Hey doc, it's a little bit too quiet." I'm like, "Oh fuck, don't fucking say that." Boom, we get hit by a vehicle-borne IED. It happened to the left side of my body here. When it blew up, it did this to our Humvee. I felt myself lift off the floor. It was like brown everywhere. I can't hear shit. And so a taxi comes in my direction. It's creeping. And I'm like, okay, this is a secondary guy. I throw something at it and it's still creeping towards me. And I pull my gun out and I'm pointing at it, but it's still coming towards me. So I sprint to the car with my gun pointed at it. And we were on the mounted patrol and I left outside and I hear... When I heard that, I felt the airspace tighten up next to me. I'm like, I braced myself to die. I got out 07. Reintegrating was really hard because I was full of self-loathing. I really just hated myself. You know, I used to be somebody, used to be important. I was doing very high-risk behavior for myself. I didn't trust myself to even own a firearm. There's an overpass from 55 going to the 91. And I'm like, I could just pull over and jump off this fucking bridge. My name is Noi Dumpit. I was a Navy corpsman. I served 2002 till 2007.
Right on. And where are you from?
I'm from Orange County.
Orange County, California.
Orange County, California, yes, sir. Okay, so long story short, my grandfather was actually a war hero in the town we came from in the Philippines. He was in the death march in Bataan, but not as a POW. He was actually there as a spy. I actually found this out, you know, just after I got out of the military. He was always been my hero, but he, you know, finding out about him after his death was way more important than me knowing him, and I looked up to him, right? So he did it all. He was a military veteran. He was also, you know, his military record says Allied forces. So he was, you know, he was with the Allied forces that worked with the United States in World War II. So basically his job was to escape the camp. Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with the death march of Bataan. It's not that big. It's as big as a parking lot. So the Japanese said, I don't know what the hell to do with these guys, but they need to be punished. So they'll make a march in circles in the size of a parking lot. And then at the end of the day, they dug an entrenchment big enough, only big enough for everybody to fit in there standing. Okay. So you would also, can you only imagine, like, nobody can lay down, nobody can go to bed, but everybody was in this ditch. You know, we saw in my grandfather's journal, you know, some things that he would mention was, that rats, you know, at night would come into the hole and start chewing at their legs and things like that. So, you know, what would he do? Because he's from the province of Pangasinan, so him and his brothers really just became like the rebellion. They would escape at night. They would go downriver and receive supplies from people upriver. You know, that was also part of the rebellion. And then he would bring medical supplies, and then he would take care of people. Fast forward at the end of the war, he had met my grandmother. My grandmother was actually part of the rebellion, sending medical supplies. And, you know, the funny part was he had actually expressed wanting to be with her. And her and her friends were like, oh, no, man, he's kind of ugly. So, you know, that's what my aunt had actually told me. But the girl says, hey, you know, you should give him a chance. And so my grandmother gave him a chance. And because she gave him a chance, he had given her like probably the best life that any wife could ever have, right? They had 6 kids. My mom is number 4 of 6, 4 girls in the front, and then 2 boys at the very back. Yeah.
Wow.
How did
you find out all this information about your grandfather?
So I've always adored him, right? So he was also like, you know, he was also into speculative masonry. So I found everything that he did fascinating when I was young. He was an engineer. He owned the last piece of property in the large part of the Philippines, in the Metro Manila. It's pretty much the equivalent of South Coast Plaza, right? He owned the last piece of land at that corner. And he knew that, you know, progress was eating up anything residential. And so he had decided, like, we should kind of like make our way to the United States. So my uncles went first, and then my mom right? We went soon after. We have relatives that went to Australia, and then we had some relatives that stay in the Philippines. And then there was this journal, right, that we saw, and then I saw his service record at some point. And I want to say I saw his service record maybe less than 10 years ago through one of my cousins who lives in DC. She kind of works within a body of government somewhere over there that says, that honored the Allied forces through World War II. So I don't recall specifically what that was, but yeah. And so fast forward to finding out everything, it piqued my interest, and I said, if that was my grandfather, and I know his father was a politician, it was the governor of the town, but before that, my grandfather's grandfather was actually also like in the warrior class in the Philippines, like, around Spanish colonization era. So, it's funny that we look at the things online, right? Like the famous Joe Rogan stuff where they say, strong men create weak times create weak men create hard times. And I look at the history, it was like, oh, crazy. I went to war. My uncles, which was my grandfather's sons, one of them actually worked for the mayor. And then my grandfather was in war. And then his dad was a governor. And then that guy's dad was like a warrior, like, with it's weird. They call them, they carried these really weird weapons, right? Like these swords were like just really weird shapes, and they would like have snake-like blades and things. So, so yeah, that piqued my interest, and I thought I had a really big interest in the warrior class of the lineage of my family. So I ended up in war. But, I wasn't built to be a war fighter. I was more built to be a corpsman, a medic. I was a little bit more empathetic. Oh.
Well, corpsmen are war fighters too.
Sir, keep.
What made you choose the Navy?
It's going to come off racist, but ethnic prerequisite.
There's so many Filipinos in the Navy, huh?
I know. My mom found out I wanted to join the military. And naturally speaking, I did the college thing after high school. But I knew I wanted to go to the military, so I set myself up to fail, right? All my grades, crap. All my, hard classes withdrawn within the first 2 weeks. I was just too wild for an education. And so I kept telling myself, there's always the military, and I ended up there. So I told my mom had concerns. She had told my uncle. My uncle found me a recruiter from San Diego who was, oddly, well, naturally, it's not odd. They wanted somebody from the motherland to be the guy to take care of me, to get my paperwork straight. So it guaranteed me what's called a pipeline in the Navy. So you go to boot camp, they make sure that in your paperwork, you're going to do X, Y, Z. You do boot camp, corpsman school, and then you're on your own. And so when I went to boot camp, I was guaranteed corpsman school. But when I went to corpsman school, they said, hey, we're making C schools available, right? C schools is where you get a secondary Navy enlistment classification code, NEC. So among which, the OR Tech was open, pharmacy technician was open. There were a few other ones, but when you pick it, the back end, they say, hey, it's a time of war. So guess what? You have to go to combat medic school first. So you'll get your pipeline. So you'll go boot camp, corpsman school, field medic school, and then pharmacy tech was the one I chose. Yeah.
How did it make you feel knowing that coming from working in a pharmacy to all of a sudden now you're going to Fallujah?
I was actually more like conflicted. And I was a medic. And medics are deemed as non-combatants, right? And I was raised Catholic, so I had my own what do you call it? I was conflicted. Let's call it conflict. I was conflicted. So I went to church and I spoke to a priest, and it was, the hard part. Priests are a lot like doctors, right? If it's a new doctor, and inexperienced, you're going to ask them some questions and they don't really fully answer your questions. So I went to a Catholic church, the one that my mom and I had gone to a few times when my mom was still a Catholic. And I spoke to a priest and I say, hey, so I'm going to go to war and I want to talk to you about this. And he goes like, what's there to talk about? And I said, like, I don't know. What if I take a life? And he said something to the effect of, well, you're doing it for your country. And I said, like, yeah, but I don't know. What if I'm the one that's wrong? It's like, God will forgive you. And so to me, it's like, I don't know. I think it's more complicated than that, you know? So I went with the feeling of like the internal conflict, I guess, right? Because, you know, nobody wants to take a life, but we will do it for duty, family, right? For the things that we believe in. And I was willing to do all of the above. You know, I just wanted to make sure, because I don't know if the person I'm, you know, pointing my gun at is good or bad, because at that point, right, it's the second battle for Fallujah. I already know that, like, women are sending kids, right, with bombs. You know, women themselves are strapping themselves and things. So, like, to me, it's like, you know, I've always been more EQ, more empathetic than IQ. I'm a dumbass, but, like, I care about feelings a lot, and I like to to think with my heart before my head. So, you know, yeah.
Talk to me about your arrival to Fallujah, man. What was it like? How did you guys get there? And, you know, how did everything unfold for you?
So we fly in the C-130. We ended up in Kuwait, you know, and we ended up in the 7 tons, and the 7 tons, cold as hell. If I recall correctly, I actually thought it was, at the time, Thanksgiving and on, but it was actually Christmas, that we ended up over there, end of November, like around Thanksgiving through Christmas. But it was so cold. I remember it being so cold that when it was time to get off the 7 ton, I'm like, I don't know if I can jump this. I feel like my knees are going to shatter. It was that cold, right? So, you know, still a fat Corpsman at the time, right? I love and so grateful for this experience, because it made me a very different person, you know? I used to say I was born again hard, right? But anyway, so I get out of the 7 ton, and then we ended up at, I think it's Camp Liberty, Kuwait. And then we were just waiting there until it was time to go to the mansion. So we arrived at the mansion. We were trying to determine where we're going to end up at, which is eventually a soda factory. But when we get there, the staff sergeant comes to us and goes like, all right, so everybody situates themselves in this room, or whatever. There's a sat phone upstairs, okay? Go call your family. You guys all get 5 minutes each, then get the fuck back down. So we're in line. I'm in line, and maybe, I don't know, 10 people go ahead of me, right? And then there's a guy in front of me. His name is Becker. Really big guy, okay? Football player type, you know, huge. So he's like this on the roof of the mansion. There's a fence. He's like this, a sat phone like this, talking to his family. Seems like it's not even scary at all, right? So it seems fairly okay. And so he finishes his phone call. He hands me the sat phone. He goes like, you're going to want to be at least your head slightly up, because the reception dies right past the fence. So I said, okay. And I'm a new guy. I'm like, I think I need my helmet. It's like, I didn't even put mine on. That's what he said, right? So he tells me like, yeah, you're good. Just go up there and, you know, talk. Yeah, let your head pop out a little bit or whatever. Just go like this. I'm like, all right. So I get up there, I call on the sat phone, my son's mother at the time, and we're arguing, okay? And I'm like, honey, wait, I got 5 minutes to tell you I'm here, I'm safe. That's all I can say. I can't tell you where I'm at, what we're doing, but she's arguing, yelling at me, you know, she reveals, obviously, like, I'm just, you know, like, really sad that you're gone, you're this and that. I don't know what I'm going to do without you, yada, yada, yada. And while, you know, I start saying something, and then suddenly it's like crack, 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 crack. Okay, like 4 cracks, and I'm getting peppered by concrete. I'm going like this, right? And, you know, I get hit with this bystander effect, because I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I'm getting hit, right? Like next to the concrete. And I turn around, everybody's on the floor. And Sprague, right? Paulie looks up at me, goes, hey, you might want to duck, fucking idiot. I'm like, oh shit. So I ducked. Okay.
And your wife's on the phone.
Yes.
Holy shit, dude.
No, the phone cuts off. So like, because he said like Becker said
Oh
like
my
I have to be
God.
so I get cracked, 4 cracks, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I turn, and then they go, you might want to fucking duck, idiot. So I duck, phone cuts off. The staff sergeant comes in, he goes like, who was that? Who was on the phone? Who was that? Who was that? And I'm like, I'm not getting in trouble. And he goes, it was Dumpit. I'm like, and he goes, go call your family. Go call them back, okay? Go call them back. It was after everything was secured. Go call them back. And go tell whoever you're on the phone with. I'm like, nah, I'd rather not. Staff sergeant. He's like, why not? We're fucking fighting right now. So it's like, well, at least give her some peace of mind that you're alive. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm like, all right, staff sergeant, fine. So I get back up, then I call. And then the very first words come like, why the fuck did you hang up? And then she continues to just rail into me. And I'm like, hold on. Can you give me a minute? I need to tell you something so you don't get mad. She's like, what? Blah, blah, blah. And then my Marines in the background go, no, don't tell her about it. Right? They do this. And there's like, I don't know, 6 to 8 of them. And I feel like, now that I describe it, I feel like I was, it looked like, I feel like I was in Peter Pan. A bunch of the fucking Lost Boys are going like this. Don't say nothing, that's doing this shit right here. A bunch of kids not getting in trouble. And so I'm like, nothing. We just lost reception. Okay, so it's fine. She's like, what was that sound? And I'm like, no, everything is fine. We just lost reception. And the sat phone, I dropped the sat phone or something. Okay, but I'm here. I'm safe. I'll talk to you later. And then just hang up. She doesn't hear about it until I get home, So
that was your first little.
That was my very first experience. I guess an attempt on my life in Iraq. Yeah. My second experience, it was, we were on the mounted patrol, and then I was talking to the interpreter, and I want to say we were probably 20, 30 minutes into the patrol already, and we were just kind of talking, and we're still kind of new in that deployment, and I'll left outside and I hear right, and then so when I heard that, I felt the space tighten up, the airspace tighten up next to me. It was like right here. I went like this. Literally, like I braced myself to die. Like, okay. And then I hear thump, but it's not big enough to be like, boom. Okay. And so, the squad leader, his name was Sule. I hear him go, 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 go. So we drive really far, go really fast, right? We go circle around whatever happened, and we come back. There's a mortar sticking out of the concrete. And I'm like, holy shit. And I forget who it was. Maybe it was my buddy George or whatever. He goes like, you almost died, Doc, or some shit like that. I don't remember. But anyway, so we're looking at it, smoke's still coming out of it or whatever. And I'm like, holy cow, man, this is kind of crazy, right? Like it's a crazy feeling. And then, I see George walk up to it and kind of kick it like this. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, bro? I'm like, but I mean, I don't know anything about ordnance, right? I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, are we gonna fucking die or what? Don't be a fucking idiot. And he's like, it would have gone off already or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm right here, bro. I don't fucking know anything about it. Like, if you're gonna do that shit, let me fucking walk away first, okay? And you fucking go fuck with it as much as you want, okay? Like, I know my guys kind of yet already, but not that much yet. So I'm still the new corpsman, right? Still earning my stripes, still trying to I guess provide them with my pound of flesh that gives me the title doc. And so I'm like, all right, time to get the fuck out. Let's get out of here or whatever. And yeah, George picks it up, like holds on to it and just kind of wiggles it and pulls it out. And just like, should we call UD? And he's like, I just chucked it to the side. It was funny, it was very funny. Yeah. We had, let's see, one time, we were doing a full patrol, right? Quite a while. And on the way back, we had heard from the OP2 that there was we heard it. So literally if you're on one side of the road, on the opposite side of the road is, where the suicide VBID came. So the VBID hit the gas tank of a 7-ton, and then the OP had said, like, you know, the 7-ton flip 4 times. It was flinging out women Marines and stuff, you know. They're the women who get dropped off to ECPs because, you know, you're not, when we started letting people in and out of Fallujah, like, women have to frisk, you know,
Yeah.
the women. And so, you know, we were there, and I regret actually not pushing to jump in, because like right when we were walking back into the base is when it happened. We literally, I can hear it, you know, like we felt the percussion of that explosion. And but like half of my guys were able to go. I tried to sneak in, but you know, I was unable to go. There's a really big one that happened around, let's say, the first half of my deployment. For some reason, I don't know why it would be the FBI, right? Are you familiar with in 2000s there was like ogrish.com?
No.
It was pretty much like the dark internet before the dark internet. It was like everybody, like if you know, it was like around the 2002 era. It was the dark internet, right? It's where like the beheadings of Americans happened in that video. So seeing that, I was a mailroom clerk before the Navy, right? Seeing that when somebody sent it to me, I was like, oh shit, this is fucked up, right? Or the hanging, right, of Blackwater, they would post it on ogrish.com. So we had an opportunity, right, to raid these homes. So 10 o'clock at night, the staff sergeant comes in and he goes, I need 2 volunteers. I need you to come up with a terrain model for a raid. So I raised my hand, and then a guy named JP Napier raises his hand. And then we go in, and we used sand, wire, yarn, used up batteries, you know, Alpha batteries or Foxtrot radio batteries. And then we made this terrain model, right, using that. And then the very next morning, so we finished about 4 a.m. and at 6 a.m., the FBI came and they showed us the 3 homes that has them. And so I was pretty excited because we were going to work with FBI tanks, CAC team. And one of my mentors from Lemoore is actually the corpsman for CAC team. You know, so I was like, great, we're gonna do this op. It's going to be awesome. And so all of us are going to do some mounted patrols in a circle. But when they give the signal out, we're going to raid these homes. So one team to this house, one team to this house, one team to this house. And this is where kind of like my little corpsman empathetic thing was, you know, really triggered. You know, I actually have part of my PTSD is like seeing kids. You know, it's not really death of people, you know, death of military age males, or you seeing gruesome stuff. Yeah, it's watching the women and kids suffer. You know, so we do the mounted patrol. And when they give the signal, it was really, really fast, right? You know, everybody stops and raided the homes. So they pulled out the military age males, they pulled out the women, they pulled out the children, you know. And then I was somewhere by the Humvees because, you know, they said like anybody who gets hurt, doc, be ready because, you know, these are homes of terrorists, right? So it was like a very exhilarating 10 minutes, okay? And I'm watching them like, you know, handle the military age males over there. And I feel like tug on my uniform, you know, on my medic bag actually. It was this young kid bawling his eyes out. And, you know, I knew somewhat of broken Arabic. I took the incentive to learn some Arabic, you know, for conversational purposes if I needed to treat an Iraqi kid or something like that, you know. Like when means where in Arabic, you know, and then wajah means like where's the pain at? Where is your pain? So, you know, and this kid was barefoot, right? And he kept pointing in the direction of the males. And, you know, with broken Arabic, I was able to extrapolate that this kid was saying like, hey, my brother, I want to go see my brother. Like, he's not even military age male or something like that, right? Like, this kid was like almost military age. You know, let's call him like maybe 15 or something like that, you know? And so he just wanted to see his brother. And so I couldn't let him go because they were still there, you know? So I waited my turn, but this kid was just bound, inconsolable. And so I said, All right. So, when things kind of died down a little bit, all right, let's go. So I took him by the hand, you know, and man, like kids in the United States don't fucking know. They don't know. Can you? Kids don't know, right? This kid was walking on like, we blew everything in Fallujah, right? The fucking buildings are demolished and shit. There's rebar coming out of things, rust everywhere, fucking nails. This kid was walking with bloody feet just to get his brother. So I get to this guy, I get this kid to his brother, and turns out one of the homes that we had that we were at, they were actually a loaned home. Okay. So I don't know why these fucking families don't fucking understand. But can you not tell the bloody fucking walls? Like, this is what they do, the shit, but according to one of the females, that I was speaking to, with broken Arabic, obviously, it's more of like they gave him the home because they don't have a home, right? The terrorists gave him a home, but they say, when we're going to do shit here, get the fuck out. So the family is a very modest family, but can't afford much, but needs to live, right, in the fucking desert. So they'll take off when they do bad stuff in there, right? I mean, like, if you see the stuff in there, it's like, I don't know how many dead people were here, like, knowing that there's so much blood in this room of concrete walls, but they have to make a living. They have to live. They have to have somewhere for their kids to be in. So it was just really sad. Sad to see, So, yeah. So the kid stuff really hurt me.
Yeah, yeah, man. No, that's it's hard to deal with. Hard to deal with. The women and children.
Oh, I ended up on a night patrol. When we went inside the house, the wife was Filipino.
Really?
Weird. Oh, the Philippines, right, is an archipelago. Mm-hmm. So the northern area is mostly Catholics. The central is a mix of Catholics and Muslim. And then the southern section is mostly Muslim. It was even rumored that Osama bin Laden had some wives down there. And so we go in this home, and then the male, I guess, like, welcomes the guys or whatever, and please come in or whatever. And we walk in, and I see this woman. She looks at me, and I look at her, and she goes like this. What are you doing here? In my language, like, "Nigga na gawa mo." And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing here? And she goes, oh. And then she shuts up, and then she walks away because she knows that the husband, she's not allowed to talk to me, right? Because of the husband or whatever. I'm like, oh, that was kind of weird. I'm like, I don't know.
Was the husband Filipino too?
No, he was an Iraqi. Yeah, he was an Iraqi.
Wow.
Well, yeah.
I wonder if he understood the language though.
I wonder. Yeah, I don't know. Because some are very unassuming, right? Like, a lot of the Iraqi in Fallujah or those parts of Iraq are like rural, right? So rural education and everything. So, it was really hard to teach them. When it was time for us, right, the second half of deployment was mostly policing and teaching them how we did things in the military and teaching them skills, right, to take care of their own country. But they're mostly just there for a wage. You teach them something, and you're like, yeah, I missed that. Yeah, I missed that. And then you're like, you ask them for the practical application of the knowledge. They're like, Maku, I don't know. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Noi, did you ever get the unfortunate opportunity to have to work on one of your Marines?
Thankfully, no. The worst I've actually had was we responded to, heat casualties and things like that. We had, a really big guy. He loves to work out and stuff. They went out on patrol. He hit this, it was like 140-degree weather, and he cramped up. So we actually used the PRF to respond to, I put an IV on him and stuff. Been really fortunate. It's really like I was able to treat Iraqis, which is, to me, up in the area of like, if we're really trying to make relations happen, then I also need to be empathetic to them. So here's one example. We went on a mountain patrol and we ended up finding a VBIED, right? My buddy George was
vehicle-borne.
Vehicle-borne IED, thank you. A car bomb, right? So it's a bomb. The bombs are inside the trunk and it's wired into the car. Okay. And when we found it, we towed it. We did, for some reason we towed it. I don't remember the reason, but my buddy George was in the driver's seat. Corporal Leon was in the passenger side, and they were both in the car steering while we were towing this vehicle. The sound started going off, right, in the car, and we started freaking out. It's like, and so he's signaling us like, hey, the car's fucking freaking out. But turns out it's like, fucking seatbelt, right? It's freaking out because of its own interior stuff. But it didn't go off. But we had an interpreter like on the patrol. We on the next patrol, and we find out that they didn't set it off because they like us. They're like, we weren't the bad guys they were trying to hit.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. So, and I know this because I revisited a journal that I was writing before coming here. And so, George was with you on one of these episodes, right? And he talked about it, and I'm like, why don't I remember this? And I remember it now. Because I wrote about it. We even spoke to the translator that told us, like, yeah, you guys, somebody else was being targeted, and you guys fucking found the vehicle. And so they didn't set it off. So, like I feel like we were doing our due diligence as a platoon within our AO at the time, because it's still war, right?
Did you guys find out who the specific target was?
No, but a sheikh told us. Yeah, a sheikh told us. So they all kind of work together, right? Mm-hmm. But it's more of like, it's tribal, right? Sunni versus Shia type stuff. So I would assume they would look at it as tribal also. It's like this group of guys versus like this group of guys, and they can identify public affairs Marines because their uniforms are cleaner. They hand out pencils and notebooks and stuff like that, and they know who we are too. But I guess we weren't exactly the target. Yeah. I guess I'll go into this story. This one is pretty good. It was the day after my birthday, July 7th. Okay, so it'd be July 6th in the United States. So, it was my birthday. I just got my combat meritorious promotion to E4, and I just got my warfare designation for FMF. So it was like, all right, cool. I'm in the high or whatever. And the very next day, we go on this patrol. It was really hot. I was very easily, we were all kind of very easily, triggered and roused, I guess, because of terrible, by this point, almost everybody's back in the city. We stopped a guy who was selling gasoline. He was not supposed to sell gasoline inside of the road. We tell him to get out of here or whatever. And then there was a car coming my direction. And I believe it was one of my guys, Brady. He's either Brady or, yeah, it's Brady. Okay. The taxi was coming through a barrier, like it snuck through the barrier and it was coming towards us. Okay. And didn't really stop, right? Rules of engagement, you wave them away, you throw a water bottle, you shoot at the block and then you shoot at the head kind of thing, right? So, but it was moving. And I think what the taxi driver assumed is like, hey, if I drive faster to my destination, they won't hit me, right? So the car went through the barrier and we heard the car rev, right? So one of my guys shot at the block, hit the block, went inside, and it hit the passenger right in the foot, blew out his foot. Okay, big fat hole in his foot. And so these guys are waving their hands like this, like, no, mister. So, my guys are walking up there, guns raised and all that stuff. And then I hear George go like, hey, Doc, we got a pop quiz. I'm like, pop quiz? All right, bitch. Fuck, this sucks. So we see the guy. We look at the driver. The driver's got like Coke glasses. I'm like, oh, shit. This guy is not a bad guy. You can't see shit, right? And then there's the passenger has a hole in his foot, so I'll patch him off naturally. And, at this point, we're like, well, we're trying to get these guys autonomous, so it's not really our medevac that we need to use. There's an Iraqi observation post right here. We're going to tell them to get their own medevac, and we'll just stay here until they get a medevac. So this guy gets medevaced. And then we get another call to a vehicle-borne IED, to suicide bomb. So we get to the suicide bomb right on Fran, the main road. There's Fran, and then I believe there's Henry, and then there's Ethan. So we get to this big main road, which is at the border of another area of operations. So, you know, there's a car just in flames, right? It's just in flames. It's an Iraqi army truck, and this Iraqi army truck, the guy inside is just, he's dying from the whole thing just blowing up, right? Come to find out, it was because they were when they were responding to something else, the guy in the back with the up gun, right? They hit a bump and he ND'd inside the vehicle, right? So, you know, that really sucks. But there's all sorts of chaos here. We got that guy, we got the suicide bomber, and we got like all these vehicles that people just ran away from. Okay. And so I'm right behind cover, and then a farmer comes out of nowhere, and he's like, you know, with another military age male asking for help. So I patch them up and get them on their way. And we're like, all right, well, I guess nothing's gonna happen here. So we take off. We go back the other way on Fran. This is a QRF rotation there, quick react force rotation. So we hit Fran. We pass Henry, and we'll start taking a turn on Ethan. And my machine gunner goes like, hey, Doc, it's a little bit too quiet. I'm like, oh, fuck, don't fucking say that. All right. Right away goes, it's a little bit too quiet. Boom, we get hit by an IED. It happened to the left side of my body here, right? And I guess maybe the angle of the bomb, right? Because when it blew up right here. It did this to our Humvee. So I felt myself lift off the floor. I was holding on to the bench, and then we went this way, and then it slammed back down. And you know, there's a part of Hurt Locker. It's kind of like criticized by many people. Some people really like it, some people don't. But like how vivid the sand scene came was exactly what I saw. It was like brown everywhere. I'm looking left and I'm looking right while my ears going, right, I can't hear shit. And once the dust settled, the first thing I saw was a set of eyes, which is was our machine gunner, you know, Leo. And I'm frozen. All right, I've never been hit with an IED before, so I'm frozen. He stands up, he kicks the door open, because the door is only really held by, like, you know, the gates close like this. But the Marine Corps is so cheap, right? They don't have real gates. We use a sleeping cot bar to hold the gate. So he kicks the cot bar, he kicks the gate open, and he starts holding security. So that kicked me into gear. And I go, is everybody okay over there? Are you guys okay? So the driver, his name is Nathaniel. He groans a little bit. And then I check in with Brady, and I said, like, are you okay? Is everybody okay? And Brady goes, I'm good. But his finger was like right here. Like his hand is pretty much, you know, he broke his last finger. And so they, you know, just like a bunch of Marines, they would jump out. They raid a bunch of houses that was right next to there, right? And so I'm just left right here. Like, you know, what do I do? And so a taxi comes in my direction, and it's creeping. And I'm like, ah, shit, okay. So I go like this. I try to wave him off, like turn around and go the other way, but it still comes towards me. And I'm like, so I throw something at it. It won't go away, and it's still creeping towards me. And I pull my gun out, and I'm pointing at it. And, you know, this is just after the IED, so, you know, I am heavily adrenalized, right? So I point my gun, and I'm like, okay, this is a secondary guy, and I see him starting to come back towards me. So all the guys start to jump back in the truck or whatever. And I'm like, I don't want it to be a secondary guy. So I sprint to the car with my gun pointed at it, but I didn't have the gall to pull the trigger, you know, for some reason. So I run, and the guy like stops because he finally notices that I have my gun pointed at him. I run straight to the driver's side and I kick the glass of the window, and then I yank him out, and I hit him with my gun because I wasn't going to shoot him. I was going to kill him. And then I just tell him to get the fuck out of here. So he runs away. And, thankfully it wasn't a trigger man. It could have been worse for me, But I just knew that, like, it was either all of us if it was a real guy or just one of us, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty ballsy, man.
Yeah, I guess so, like, but what do, right? You just kind of like, it's better in a situation like that to act and then like do a debrief later, as in like, what would I have done differently versus like, oh, I didn't do anything, right? If we got hit once already, there could be a secondary, and it's wild. Yeah, that kind of an experience is really wild. I am grateful, like it affects me, but I am grateful to know that I didn't take a life that probably was not the guy, I don't know. I wouldn't trade these experiences for anything else. I believe in my heart makes people more humble. Very next day, I guess I was celebrated because it was my birthday. It was little trifecta, right? Promotion, combat meritorious promotion, my birthday, and my warfare, my fleet warfare specialty, right? That was I was given. And so a bunch of E4s just really showed up we call it the Octa. So we were at the soda factory, and then in this soda factory at the very corner was a little mosque that we took over, like as our our platoon, our squad's residence. Okay.
Now, is the soda factory a real soda factory?
Yeah. It was a real soda factory. It's got like all these old machines. It was this really big compound. Yeah. And so the freaking E4s all come in, and I'm sitting there, like I just sat up, and a bunch of E4s. I'm like, oh shit, I know what this is. So it was the most cartoon shit ever because they bum rushed me, and I did a baseball slide between somebody's legs, and then I popped up. I don't know if you've seen in Jackie Chan movies. It's more of like, hey, I don't want no trouble. I was Jackie Chan that day. I'm like, I don't want no trouble. So I slid out, and then it was just E4s on my bed right there, and then like, hey, we were supposed to beat his ass, but like I jumped in with him, but eventually I'm just holding on to people and I'm just getting my crap wrecked and stuff. It was really funny. Yeah. I got lucky, I guess. I wrestled in high school, so I can kind of hold my own. I know how to play some kind of talk game on them and stuff. I didn't know any submissions, but they do McMap, which is close to some kind of jiu-jitsu type stuff, and they do arm bars and stuff. So I didn't really know how to execute that. So I just knew how to play the top game. So I'll just, put them on the ground kind of thing and hold them down.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have any good memories from being in Fallujah?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, that. So here's one. I have one of my corporals. His name was John Gott. Right. He and I, we didn't have enough people in our platoon. Okay, we didn't have enough people in our company even. So corpsmen also stood post. We weren't supposed to. We were supposed to be able to respond to things, right? But we stood post. I stood post. Okay. And so John would come up and check on me when I were standing post and stuff, and I'd be at the gun, right? And he would come in and check in. He'd bring people, let's call it bottles of water and Gatorade and things like that, right? So, but John was actually at the point in his life where he was contemplating marriage. It's a really good memory because it occurred pretty much throughout the whole deployment. So John and I got really close, and he would come up, we'd post, he'd sit down, and we would do, we'd smoke cigarettes and stuff. I was a smoker back in the military, smoked Newports and stuff, but I would do this, take off my helmet, I'd take a hit of a cigarette, and I'd put my helmet back on, because at night, right, the ember on the cigarette is just like, it's like a freebie. Like, if there's a sniper there, please come fucking hit me. So he and I would just sit down, just tell stories, and He actually at the end of our deployment said like he attributes his marriage with his wife with conversations I've had with him in the roof, because it went from the soda factory to, we even went to this place, we called it Old School. It's literally an old school that became a base. That's where we taught Iraqi army their skills. So that base was actually with army reservists. So the reservists were there. They'll teach them skills, but we'll go in there, we'll take them out. So one example of that was they divvied up our platoon. So I got a squad of Iraqi. My buddy Manny got a squad of Iraqi. And then we had this thing called Operation Block Party. It was small. Right? So we would take these guys in, I had one side of the road, Manny had the other side of the road, and we would just clear every single home. While we're clearing these homes, like I said, these Iraqis are just there for a wage. They're not really, I don't know what it is, right? There's a difference in culture, I guess, where I say like, okay, next home, we got to do this. And they're like, Mister, it's padlock. Can't, no, it's padlock. I'm like, what do you mean? Blow the lock. Oh no, they're all just a bunch of AKs. We don't have a shotgun, right? I'm like, okay, jump over it. And they're like, what? Like, jump over the damn thing. So I would do it. We would bust a lock. We'd get a hammer. We'd just bust that lock. Or I would jump. If it's not a lock, if it's a locked door from the other side, I would just jump the fence and open it up, and then we'd just clear every single home. And it was just really weird to them to see that we were that thorough. And so we would take them back to Old School, and then we'd tell them what they did wrong, and we'll tell them like, well, we'll give them other tactics and stuff. Which is primarily the Army's job, really, but I don't know how it works where, the Army teaches them tactics and then we have to take them out because they don't get to critique them. So we're just like, this is dumb. It's kind of a dumb idea. There was like a loud noise and the Iraqi got scared. So he dropped his AK.
No shit.
Yeah. And then he ran behind the thing. So I'm like, we're not even getting shot at, bro. Like, so I walked over there. He's shaking. He's literally shaking. And I'm like, we didn't get shot at. So I grabbed him by the flak jacket and I dragged him to his fucking rifle. And I'm like yelling. I'm like, you fuck, pick this shit up, man. It's just, because like it could get annoying, right? Like, so I wasn't very empathetic or patient at that point. It was getting close to the second half of the deployment. We need to teach them this stuff so we can go home, so we can get the hell out of this country. But, there's just too much sticky points to change their ways because they're not American. Mm-hmm. There was in terms of memories, define good memories because some of them are dangerous, but good. We had a standoff with Iraqi police. That was fun. Yeah, they wanted, they wanted to throw their badges around. They were acting a fool, I guess, right? They were trying to get through the ECP, the entry control point, and get some kind of special treatment, but for Marines, right? So not gonna happen.
Like they didn't want to get checked.
Yeah, they didn't want to get checked. They want to do what they want. Yeah, maybe they had some contraband in their trunk or something like that, and so we didn't let them. And we didn't let them through. So they drew their guns, and we drew their guns. And of all things, okay, you got a 50 pointed at you, but the one thing that made him back down is he was Lance Corporal. His name is Napier. He steps out in the middle, like, it's almost like, it's comedic because it's like a breakdance crew fucking battle, like a large group of people here, a large group of people here. One guy comes out in the middle, and then instead of going like this, right, Napier comes out and does this with his shotgun. Do we got a fucking problem here? And then Iraqi police backed off. So I'm like, holy shit, okay.
Really?
Yeah. There's something audible, right, about a shotgun that I guess, is I'll call it Hollywood, right? Like maybe Hollywood did it, like something about a shotgun rack made them back off.
Yeah.
When there's a 50 like pointed at them, like downwards, and then we got like freaking M16s pointed at them. We got a 240 pointed at them, The entry control point was a fun one. I was put in post 3, which is called the blacklist post. So everybody that goes through the control point has to be checked. I had a list of names, okay? And so I'd look at the card, I'd look at the names. Okay, you can go. I'd look. So one day we were at this, I was standing this post. I catch between 5 and 7 names on this list. Super suspicious, right? Very suspicious. So I radio to the lieutenant. I'm like, hey, this guy's name, what do you want me to do with him? Detain him or let him go? So the lieutenant goes, it was a long pause. And he goes, let him go. Second one, it was a faster pause. Let him go. Third, fourth, fifth. So there's 5. I mean, this is uncommon because we were in this rotation. We're in this rotation for 2 weeks. And this one specific day, I've never seen names on this list. And I found 5 so far, sir. No, let him go. So to me, it's like, okay, it's beyond me. Okay. So the 7th one, the last one, a guy shows me a badge. And the badge is of him wearing a Marine Corps utility, but no name tag. Okay. He's obviously Iraqi. The badge has him wearing the uniform. And the badge looks made up. So I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do with this guy? He goes, let him go. I'm like, really? So this is guy number 7. His badge, you got to take a look at his badge. So he says, let him go. So it's probably been beyond me, right? So I wonder if there's some kind of a thing. But to me, it was too suspicious. This guy is wearing Marine Corps uniform. So I don't know. I give him a little bit of grief, but I let him go. So, but I feel like, what are we doing?
What were the names on the list for?
Known terrorists, known associates of terrorists, known family members of terrorists.
Yeah. And so you had 5 people.
Yeah, I got 5. Yeah, I literally caught 5, and I pull them out, and I stage them, and I make them sit down, and they with the I tell the Iraqi army to kind of keep an eye on them, and I got let go. So I was like, what's going on behind closed doors that I don't know about? So it was just really weird to me. But right on that very day, I think I acquired some kind of a PTSD to 7 tons. Because when I'm driving on the freeway, I get kind of, when my PTSD is high, I don't like being next to a gas tank because of this rotation of posts, because I'm like, oh man, am I going to get hit? Or, guy 1, guy 2, guy 3, guy 4, holy shit, man. Lieutenant, are we going to do something about this? I'm just letting people through. Are we just letting terrorists in or what? These are known terrorists, right? This list you gave me are terrorists. And so, thankfully nothing happened to me. So I don't know. I guess maybe they had something going on behind closed doors that I don't know about. Because it's the infantry, right? You do a bunch of stupid stuff, and you can't question, or reason.
How long did you guys stay out there in Fallujah?
So our rotation was 6 months total, but in Iraq there would be a 1 month before and after, right? So there's the 2 weeks of transition. And 2 weeks of being on base, Kuwait is your first and last part that you're there. And then, I don't remember, I want to call it Camp Liberty, but it was the FOB or the main FOB that we were there for a couple weeks. Yeah.
Anything else from Fallujah before we move on?
I wanted to kind of focus on, because it's in my head, the time that, we received packages for the first time. So, when we received packages for the first time, my family wanted to hook me up. They sent me, so it was my best friend's brilliant idea. He would go to Costco, he'd get the Listerine bottles, he'd pour the Listerine bottle out, he'd replace it with whiskey. And so the caps back then weren't the caps that you see at Costco now, where it's pinch and turn. It was a cap, and then it had the security seal. So this guy was so meticulous with it. When he recapped it, he super glued every tip of the security seal. So I got 2 or 3 of those. And then my mom and my stepdad sent me Coca-Cola bottles, Mountain Dew bottles, but they're all different liquor. And so apparently 2 or 3 of those liquors was my stepfather's father's hard liquor when he passed away. So that shit was strong. Fucking strong. Okay. And then somewhere in the platoon, one of the guys, I think Napier, had also procured weed. So the time we got our packages, I was just reading letters, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with all this liquor. I'm not gonna slang it or whatever. So I just kind of divvied it up amongst the guys or whatever. I'm like, I'm gonna stick to this one, just this one bottle, or I like this bottle. You guys can divvy up however you want, right? So he's kind of take care of my guys, but like, oh my god, people just throwing. I'm like, guys, we haven't drank in a really long time, so you can control yourselves. But people were just wrecked. Thankfully, operational the next day. Okay. Thankfully, I was like, please don't get me in trouble. I don't want this to come back to me. Like, please don't get me in trouble. You know.
What was it like coming back from Fallujah?
Not so many words. Terrible. There's 10 of us that got deployed. Right, they got pulled out of the Naval Hospital in Lemoore. It's called an augmentee program, I guess. So when we were returned from augmentee, we got to 29 Palms, and I was so excited to see my family, and they just kicked us out. They're like, "Here, go to the barracks, go grab your shit, get the fuck out." And we're like, "Okay, what about our paperwork? Do we need, are you guys gonna do the paperwork?" And they're like, "No, they'll take care of you once you're over there," which is wrong. They should have taken it over there, right? So the rest of my Marines have this combat action ribbon, and I don't. Um, so I'm excited to see my family. We leave. I never even got to have, decompression time with my platoon or anything like that. Never even got the chance to have a beer with them or anything. So we get back to Lemoore, and we all think everything is fine, hunky dory. But like 10 of us went, 10 of us came back home, not knowing that we lived for 6 to 8 months of life or death. So I'm at the pharmacy window, and I'm snapping at fucking people, like officers' wives. One time there's an officer's wife that said, like, "You're gonna address me with my husband's rank." I'm like, "And you're gonna get the fuck out of here, bitch." And so my chief just grabs him by his shoulders, like, "Bro, you can't do that here. Like, you can't do that." And to save me from getting busted down, they put me on night shift. Yeah, so I ended up with the rest of the guys in night shift, and a lot of us in night shift were all like Fallujah folk, or so we kind of bonded over like being combat experience kind of thing. But I, like I said that earlier, I feel like I was born again hard. I totally appreciated the value of the military gave me from that. So I'm like, I'm in shape. My uniform's like squared away. I'm not like the guy that I was doing CPR on, like the fat airman that I was like, ah, shit, man, this could have been me kind of thing. Like, I'm different, but I was also self-destructive. I was also, I guess, had some kind of imposter syndrome and survivor's guilt. Like every time I would get drunk, I would cry about like, man, everybody's like, people are dying overseas, and like, I don't know why I fucking survived that thing. And I don't know what it was. It was so weird. Like, I was always sad about an unresolved issue that I never, I guess, experienced, right? I don't know, call it like when I sprinted to that taxi driver, thinking that he was a suicide car bomb or something like that. But like, the unresolved issues of my son's mother and I, like, resurfaced, and when I came home, like, eventually. So it didn't really it took like less than a year, and then we just got worse, became tumultuous, like, my perspective changed, and I value the military more. It was more of like, me before that was more of like, I'm joining the military as a career, but like, it's because I idolized my grandfather, but like, untested, never been in the water. I never had, I was never a sailor. I was always been a sailor in calm water, but now I'm a sailor with experience, right? So I can speak to something bigger, right? It wasn't, by the time, I came home, the philosophy wasn't if you deploy, right? When you join the military, it's not if you deploy, it's when you deploy. So you really have to consider these things very well. It was also the era where, our They were still augmenting people right out of the hospital to go. I volunteered to go because I was going through my divorce, but like they wouldn't let me, right? They're like, this guy's already fucked up in the head. Why would we send him out? You know, like it'll just make us look bad if he gets in trouble or something. My career counselor asked me, what do you want to do? Right? Because you're going through a divorce. Are you going to stay in the Navy or are you going to get out? I said, it's 3-4 open. I want to go to 3-4. I want to go to that same company. If you can get me in the same company as my guys, I'd love to go. And the career counselor said, no, here's the open billets. They're all like deploying units in different units. And I'm like, no. Because the thing that was sitting with me was, you know, going through a divorce. My son's mom is Native American. So she's moving north to the tribe and I'm moving south to Southern California because I met her in Southern California. And so I was losing because she was sort of tribe. The judge there is her uncle, right? Like I drove him around wherever we're together. So I knew I had the short end of the stick in this divorce. I was going to lose. But the far question would have been, what kind of son am I going to have? Is my son going to be like, well, you fucking left us, dad, you know, or you gave up on us, dad. And I'm like, all right, I want to be able to say that, like, I fought for you and I tried my best to be there for you as a father. You know, I was ill-equipped and unprepared to be a good provider. The military was what gave me purpose. But let's test my sea legs. You know, am I going to be able to survive financially out here in the civilian sector or not? I don't know, you know.
What was it like for you trying to reintegrate yourself back in society?
Yeah, it was pretty hard. It was a blow to the it was a blow to the ego, you know, that you're this, like, you know, born again war fighter. You know, I was in Lemoore still. I even became part of the command fitness coordinators, but I was toxic, man. Like I would be, you know, I was night shift. So on our days off, we would go out party. We would end up somewhere in Cancun and come back to base or whatever. You know, it was just, let's put it this way. Like one night we were out in town in Lemoore, Hanford, you know, drinking. And back then you'd have the luxury of getting an IV before you run command PT. Well, I didn't, you know, so I came back. It was like already morning and we ran a division run. So I was calling cadence, you know, and I was like, C-130 rolling down the strip. And it was like quiet. And all you hear is, and I'm like chucking up on the side while we're all running. And then people were kind of looking at me and I just go like this and man up and I keep calling cadence. So that was pretty fun. It was a fun memory. But going back and reintegrating was really hard because, you know, and to go to college, I went to Golden West and be like, what year was this? 2009. By then, I got my original job back through the Soldiers and Sailors Act. So, you know, I was back in the mailroom, but for a litigation firm, but I was like getting stagnant here. So after 2 years, I went to school. So going to Golden West, being 2009, I was
Surrounded by
29 years old. Surrounded by kids.
You're 29 at this point?
I think
you're
so.
Surrounded by probably 18, 19.
Yeah, young kids. The young blonde girl was like, you want to go to a rave? And I'm like, fuck out of here. I don't. So it's like, that stuff happened to me in the 90s. It's like, stuck to me like it was the coolest, coolest thing, you know? And I'm just like, respectfully, no, I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate you. But, you know, it's cool, but no, you know?
Did there ever come a moment where you thought to yourself that your experience over in Fallujah was catching up with you?
Yes, a lot. Yeah. So let's see. You know, around there, I got out 07. Okay. And it's one of my biggest regrets with my son was that what I would attribute as my alive day, right? You know, the alive day is like the day you should have died or whatever. It was the IED attack. You know, it was the one that I was scared of the most, you know? So we had the mortar incident. We had a lot of AK incidents, the sniper incident. We had, you know, other bombs, right? You know, and standoff. Those are all scary moments, but like the IED was around my birthday. So when I moved south, I was able to get my son in the summers. And I feel like this is the one thing I regret was that my son never got the best of me at that time, because I would be fucked up, I would be messed up, I wouldn't be in the best mental health. Uh, my mom, bless her heart, man, like I'm very grateful because I considered myself homeless, except that I lived in the graces of my mother. She allowed me to be able to have a place because I wouldn't be able to afford California living, right? Like getting out of the military, relying on the GI Bill, like I wouldn't be able to do that. So, I would try to find my way, blindly, because when you could probably attribute to this, like when somebody's hurt or somebody's in pain, they see nothing but themselves, right? So let's call it it's kind of a strong word, too strong of a word, but like everybody becomes a narcissist when you're involved in your own feelings. Like you don't see nobody else but yourself. You're in pain, you're hurt, you're mad at the world, you respond to everybody differently, you're short, you're snippy, so I never got to give my son a better version of me than when I started seeing the change in his behavior towards me. He kind of, one time I was like, have you thought about your future? And he said something to the effect of, yeah, I think I'm going to go to college or whatever. Yeah. I'm like, what are you going to do for money? I don't know, maybe get a loan. I'm like, you ever thought about maybe joining the military? And he's like, nah. I'm like, why not? And he said, yeah, I don't like what it did to you. I'm like, fuck, that hurt. That hurt a lot, I didn't trust myself. I was very impulsive. I did a lot of high risk behavior. I've always driven fast. And I regret also, every summer I had a different significant other, like I had the flavor of the week or something like that, so my son never got to acclimate myself as somebody who was monogamous per se, I guess. I don't know, like he always saw me with a different woman, every year, like from 2009 till maybe 2007 till 13. I met my wife. But yeah, so those are all very regrettable moments in my life. I didn't trust myself. I look at, I'm driving on freeway, I'm like, there's an on-ramp. There's an overpass from the 55 going to the 91. I'm like, I can just jump this fucking thing. I can just pull over and jump off this fucking bridge, like I was full of self-loathing. I really just hated myself. I was doing, very high-risk behavior for myself. It was painful to come home, but I was experiencing a painful growth, I guess. Let's call it that way, right? Because, you used to be somebody, you used to be important, you used to look sharp in a uniform. I even tried to go law enforcement and stuff, but like they said, like, nah, you're not ready. Why don't you do some homework and come back? And I was too full of my own hubris to think that, like, what do they know? I went to fucking combat. What the fuck? I can be a cop if I wanted to. But it led me to school, which is good. And then I found martial arts. Martial arts kind of helped me out.
You mentioned living with your mom during this time. Did she notice any changes in you? Did she?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Did she talk to you about them?
Tries to. Yeah.
What?
But it's odd because she speaks from her own experiences, and you and I could probably attribute, like, they'll speak from their own naivety of what they know. So one time my mom was trying to get me to have a connection with the rest of my family. Right? So I don't have much of a connection with my family. I don't see them very often. I love my family, but I don't see them very often. I went to go see my uncle. Like he's not exactly a guy who I have the best relationship with, but I think there's respect there. But he, in not so many words, kind of bullied me when I was young. He'd beat shit out of me. He would punch me in the neck and stuff like that for stupid behavior. And I would get hurt, right? And so I don't have a very good relationship with this guy, but today's status quo, it's respectable. I respect him. He made me a stronger person. You need that kind of evil. So we ended up at his house, and I was complimenting him on You know, I've never seen this house. Looks great. You look like you're doing good. You look like you're doing great. And my uncle's kind of weird. As you know, Filipinos are kind of weird. Like he's born again Christian too, so he does this like little like emotional thing, and then he slams his hand on the table. He's like, your fucking life sucks. You don't have fucking God. And I'm like, this bitch. It was a lot closer to God than you were. Like so many fucking times. Like some fucking nerve. You gotta fucking say that shit. So I look at my mom. Is this it? It's like, is this what you brought me here for? Can we just get the fuck out of here? Like, I don't want to accelerate what's gonna happen, right? Because I have a deeper understanding of violence now that I have the experiences that I do, and I don't want to take it out on family. And so we leave, and she's trying to empathize with me. She's like, I know what you're going through. You're going through hard stuff. I know exactly what you're going through because I watch CNN. All right. Let's pause there. So I'm driving the car, and I'm just like, Mom, I love you. Just don't say anything right now. Just don't say anything right now. And she keeps trying to explain. So I blow up in the car, and I regret doing this to my mother because, but it's out of good intention, but and she doesn't know the things behind it, right? She doesn't know. I'm like, I wouldn't call it suicidal, but there's ideation there, right? Like, I didn't trust myself to even own a firearm, since the military. I love guns. I like guns, right? But I didn't trust myself. I got really good at profiling, right? Like you probably got really good at profiling. So when you see trouble, you're just like, nope. And your wife doesn't know. And
That's so naive.
Yeah, and you create the predictions of this is gonna happen here, this and this and this, and then like later on they're like, how did you know that? It's like, because it's a curse. I am exactly who I am, and I'm not very fun because of my experiences.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I'm sorry. I'm gonna kill your fun. You ever heard of Rory Miller? He has a book called Meditations on Violence.
I don't think so.
So he speaks on like violence as a script. There's a, so I here's what I think that we have as a pro, right? Is that we know where the script goes, right? Like if I were to say, guy, baggy pants, tattoo right in the face, like we know where the script is going if we put him in a certain position, right? So like if we're at a gas station, right? Guy walks in, same exact features, starts pacing right next to you. The script is going in that specific direction, So I think that a pro to us is that we have good survival instincts. The con is you can't stop the fucking script. And that's what and to our wives, they don't really notice that we know what the script looks like, right? A always goes to B, it goes to C, it goes to D. And this is the part where we say, we saw A, nope, I'm just going to go to a different set of I'm just gonna go a different route. To me, it's like I feel like it's respectable to do who we are currently. Like it's good to accept it, But so long as it does not take away from the rest of our lives, Like my wife doesn't take me to Disneyland anymore, but it doesn't deter us from going to other places. Like my wife loves Disneyland. She's like Harry Potter nerd. She's everything Disneyland, right? But like, she goes with her friends because it's funner. Yeah, I've gone with her like I think once, maybe twice. But
yeah,
we'll do public things together. But she knows she kind of knows now. Certain habits that I do. But thankfully, and she doesn't even know as much of my experience as my son's mom or my first wife. Like self-talk. Self-talk was pretty helpful to me. Like just when I was going through school and I was trying to find myself. Like, it's almost like you're studying yourself, right? Like, not just on an academic scale, you're also trying to tell yourself like, okay, what am I feeling right now? What can I do? What can I not do? I think I feel like I was able to practice that on myself while I was doing martial arts.
Yeah, so you said you got into martial arts. Talk to me about that because you own your own martial arts gym.
I liked it so much, I own them. Around that 2010, I found martial arts. And so I kept, I ended up on the map. So I liked it so much. It gave me a sense of purpose, you know, like I hate, seeing women and children get hurt. And I found a purpose being on the mat. And my instructor had said like, hey, you ever thought about, sound like you're doing the VA thing, you're going to school. You want to help me teach kids? You know, I got plenty of female instructors on the mat, but I can use a male influence. And I said, okay. So what I feel like I lost with, you know, some of the children, you know, I got to see, you know, I found it in these kids. And so it gave me a sense of purpose.
What kind of martial arts?
So it's Krav Maga.
Oh, nice.
That's it's the one from Israel. So my instructor's name was Bo DeRocher. You know, I ended up, it's funny how I ended up. Well, he had one of the instructors. I went to 24 Fitness, the same exact 24. I got a dizzy spell, you know, but a guy was in the sauna wearing GSP shorts, you know, and stretching. He's kind of like ripped and stuff. And I'm like, I will go right next to the heating element of the sauna, and I'm stretching. I touch my toes, and this guy walks up to me in his GSP shorts, and he goes like, "Hey, bro, you train?" And I'm like, fuck, am I gonna get in a fight like with a sweaty dude in a sauna? Like, what the fuck? I turn my head. I'm like, what? And he goes like, oh, I'm sorry. No. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is this, so and so, and I wanted to see if you are interested in trying a class. I teach here. Come here. And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. But I don't go. I wait a year. It was about 2009 when it happened. So 2010, I run into him. I'm like, oh, hey, how's the shop doing? It's doing great. So I go, and I loved it so much I signed up. And so fast forward 6 months, maybe I was a level 3 student. And that's when my instructor asked me to help teach kids. And then once I hit my level 4, he was like, I could use another instructor for the adults program. And so I end up becoming one of his instructors. And then I liked it so much, I became his instructor development team coordinator, you know, and kind of helped him build this school of his. And I get my black belt, you know, and I say like, it's time for me to look at my own retirement. You know, like I'm averaging like 30 something to 40, 42, 30 something to 42 students in the class where we ended up in this like modest place off of Beach and Warner. And then he ended up off the freeway, like by the 405, in a really big gym, you know, 2 large mats, 1,000 square feet each. And I would, on the classes that I teach, I would have like in the 20s through 30s or maybe 40s, like of students, you know? So I guess I was like, shit, I'm pretty good at this. Maybe, you know, so while the nursing program was running, things start clicking in my head. I'm like, that's a family plan of 250. That's like 150. That's like 170 right there, you know? And I'm like, wow, I think I have a future doing this. And so my focus shifted from nursing to that, but I was 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the other one. So fast forward to my last day of clinical on my 3rd semester, you know, getting that of an experience. I said like, I'm out. Like, I'm done. So I focus all of my energy on starting my business. So I have my school now, you know, at 2017. So I'm approaching, I'm 8 years in my business since March. So
nice.
It's been really cool.
Yeah, congrats, man. Yeah. What's the gym called?
It's called Gateway City's Krav Maga, GC Krav Maga. It's at the end of Beach Boulevard. You make a left. Yeah. Nice. Which ironically, when I was young, I was 19, I loved to cruise, and I would be in Huntington Beach. I would find myself at Beach Boulevard, and I'd say like, let me see how far this Beach Boulevard goes. And I would always end up there, and I would turn around and come back. And it didn't dawn on me until my 3rd year, until I had rekindled a friendship with an old friend, you know, and she goes like, remember we used to cruise this road? And I'm like, oh shit, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I didn't know that it was gonna land me here. So yeah.
So how are you doing now?
You know, I would say that there's very similar feelings still of like, you know, my old PTSD. That's not really, I don't think that's gonna go away. Seasons are always gonna come. But I'd like to think, you know, I like the martial arts part so much because it taught me about reps, right? So repetitions was key to any kind of mastery, right? Let's call it the mother of mastery is repetition, okay? So if you want to get good at an armbar jiu-jitsu, do a freaking armbar in jiu-jitsu, right? And then you got to pressure test the armbar through sparring. To me, the self-talk, it's gonna sound really nerdy, but like, those with YouTube motivational videos. So I got so tired of music when I started teaching for my instructor school that I would just only put on motivational sound bites, like E.T. The hip hop preacher, Eric Thomas. You ever heard of him? So somebody would put audio on his words, and then I would listen to it, on like SoundCloud or YouTube while I work out. And I would do this self-talk, and then slowly it pushed me in the right direction into what I own now, I've accepted that every summer and every Christmas time, I'm going to be like not very good, but knowing what I know of, like I said, what a script looks like, if I'm feeling very high strung one day, I'll probably try to check myself, and I'll maybe like get coverage from one of my guys and stuff. So I don't have to be like that on the mat. I tried therapy one time. It's called cognitive processing therapy instead of behavioral. And the session was on Zoom every Wednesday. And this is how I got my PTSD diagnosis from the doctor in the BA. And when I would do the sessions, Wednesday, my first class was to teach kids. So I'm on the mat, and I'm like, I would be short. Like, I wouldn't snap on a kid, but I would be short, and I've been told I have this like really weird look because if somebody asks me something that's not within what I'm used to, right? Like if we're a bunch of veterans and then the guy who's not a veteran talks about like, oh, you guys want to talk about Call of Duty or whatever, we'll look at him like, we'll look at him like there's an arm coming out of his face, right? I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? So I tend to have this look. And so when I'm teaching kids on Wednesdays, like I was afraid to do that to them. So I would seek out help from my other instructor, like, can you cover for me? Because, but on week 7 out of 12 of this cognitive processing therapy, I spoke with the doctor. I said like, hey, listen, every Wednesday, like my life is training, right? So whatever I do, I'm more likely to do it again. Because my life has always been about repetition, right? Whatever I do happens again. So if we do this on Wednesdays and I'm like on level 10, like when I drive on a freeway, I go out of my way to not be next to a semi. But like the hours that I drive is when semis drive, and it's literally 2 exits, right? I literally go through 2 exits to get to my final destination. And there's always trucks there. And I'm like, I can't do this. Like if we can't shift gears on this 12-week program that you're talking about, I can't do it. Because I'm snapping at people at my shop, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. No, it sucks because like it's pulling things out of me, right? I there's memories that I forget. There's this one time we went in a house and there's an emaciated man there, and I'm like, we should do something for this guy. And then one of my brains goes like, sorry, doc, it's not part of our thing. Like, this guy needs to be in hospital. Like, no, doc. I didn't even know that sat in my heart. That like, fuck, I just left an emaciated man to die. Like there's something wrong with this guy. He needs to be in the hospital, But like, it haunted me. And that whole week was ruined, So I'm like, I can't do my business doing this. I have to shift gears. But the doctor said like, well, we have to kind of go through the whole thing for it to actually work. And I'm like, all right, let me ask you, doc, after 12 weeks, I'm not better than what? And he said, well, I'm going to keep working with you. I'm like, no, after 12 weeks, we're worse. And you got to take on a new patient. You got to take on whatever, right? Like, I'm going to put my trust in you that you're a doctor. Are you even a doctor? Or are you a student? That's, well, no, I'm a doctor. I'm a new doctor, but I'm a doctor. I'm like, okay, so I'm worse. I'm suicidal. Are you going to be responsible for me? He's like, I don't know. And I said, then we're done. Like you're trying something with me that I don't think is working. And that you want me to trust in you when I'm actually affecting my livelihood. Like I'm extracting resources I don't have just so I can keep my mats full. And so, to me, it's more of like, all right, man up or be weak with the PTSD that I that I experience. Yeah. So I feel like I'm blessed enough though that I was empathetic to begin with, when I was in combat, that I can as long as I can read myself, then I can see myself from outside, that I can know where the script is going,
Any last words before we cut the tape?
Yeah, if you're experiencing your own version of PTSD, you're not alone. You got buddies. I'm guilty of that myself. My wife actually checks me. She's like, "Hey, you got friends, right?" She'll say like, you have to be social. Like, she has what's called friends dinner. So she'll invite her CrossFit friends. And some days I'm just like, I don't know if I have the bandwidth for it. So I'll just plan my own thing with my friends. She's like, you have to socialize. And I'm like, yeah, I know. It's like, but they're your friends. She's like, well, I mean, you have to go socialize with your friends also. Because you have I have a best friend that's moving to Santa Rosa here in June that I rarely see. I have a really close friend. I would call him one of my best friends. He lives in my mother-in-law's home, which is like 4 lights away from our home. I never see him. He's also a combat veteran, and he would be a great person to have in your show.
Yeah, connect them up.
Connect them to, Yeah. It's easy to fall off, like if I were to give other veterans advice, like we're social creatures and animals, go find 3 people, somebody to lead you, like a mentor, somebody to mentor from the teaching of this person, and find peers. Yeah, I think that's the best thing we can do for ourselves, because it's what gave us purpose in the military, right? You start off as an E1 and you become a corporal. You're not the highest guy, but you're the guy who mentors the E1s, and you have to have peers, and you have to have your battle buddies. So, yeah.
It was a pleasure to sit with you, Noi.
It's a pleasure, brother. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for giving us all a voice.